Well, here I am once again with my good friend Jonathan. We are doing another Jubilee Underground uh, segment, and we thought we had covered just about everything, but we were talking, and there's a little bit more to cover. How you doing, Jonathan?
So far, so good.
Good. So, wouldn't you agree that we needed? Uh, we were talking a little bit about we never really covered the mission statement, and I was asking you about it, and you uncovered this document, right?
Yeah, I kind of forgot I wrote it, and then when I started reading it again, I was like, "Did I even write this out? This is good." But
It is good, and when we started reading it together, I was like, let's get back on the horn.
yeah,
Well, I'm gonna bring it up. I brought it up, but no, I've lost it. Oh, here it is. Okay. And how do you want to do this? Would you like to just kind of me ask you questions? I felt like I wanted to have you first. I don't know if you want to read all the way through it, but maybe just kind of talk through the main parts.
okay. Um, we're gonna read the bullet points anyway.
Okay.
The long form is a bit much, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it says Jubilee Underground declares the inevitability of a verdant and convivial future, celebrates the inherent connectivity and resonance in all, cultivates resilient systems of life with an emphasis on natural biological assets and decentralized mutual relationships, preserves the old ways that are of lasting value for future generations, invites a wide array of tribes to conversation, collaboration, and mutual education, curates innovative ideas, projects, products with common vision, seeks to disentangle and liberate what is essentially human from the falsehoods that oppress, exploit, or disfigure, and
Mm.
provides revitalized myths and meta narratives well suited for a free and harmonious new world.
Oh man, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I have a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
The inevitability of a verdant and convivial future. What is a verdant and convivial future? I kind of know what convivial means. I know what that is. I think verdant. I'm sounds like verde, and so green, maybe alive. But I am not too familiar with those two words. You have an extensive vocabulary, so
Well, it comes in
maybe unpack
handy.
that.
It comes in handy when you're trying to escape, the ruts of predefined terms and definitions. Like the word sustainability means something to me. You can't use it, like
Yeah.
there are just some words that have just been used by so many people that it puts you back in old ruts. um but convivial we still have.
Mm,
It's not, it's not locked in.
yeah.
um and verdant, maybe green, to the point of like and alive, like you said. um I just want to give a picture of the possibility of things are just bursting with life, and everyone is fulfilled, satisfied, and enjoying existence. Isn't this
Mm,
and of course I'm talking about, in biblical terms, I'm talking about the undoing of the curse
mm,
that um decay and chaos and um disease and of course, fighting, but that's in another bullet point. But all of the things that we entropy, that things that we take for granted as things that we have to deal with, um,
Mm.
aren't aren't going to be here forever.
Amen.
Um, and sometimes people use the word hope, like I it would be really nice if we didn't have to deal with entropy and chaos and disease, but the inevitability of it is, that it's not just something I hope is true, but that it's more real. It's more real than just imagining what might be. Um, that it's
Well,
definitely happening and going to happen.
it, well, and it feels to me as though the next point celebrate the inherent connectivity and resonance in all. I feel like that is it's almost like these are steps. So declaring, I think it's important that you have like action words in there, because it's not just like well, even recognize is an action word. But first of all, starting with declaring the inevitability of a verdant and convivial future, that so just declaring it and believing it to be true, and then out of that, celebrating inherent connectivity and resonance in all. Now, resonance in all, I'm not completely sure what that means.
There is a living and pulsating life force that everything has going through it, and so
Hmm.
it's almost like they are all on the same beat. Um,
Hmm.
everything that's alive is made alive and kept alive by God, and so anything that has that life force comes from the same source, and there's going
Hmm.
to be commonalities. There's going to be uh, a familiarity, like, oh yeah, I recognize you, even if it's something very different than you in some ways. Like we think of crustaceans and amphibians and stuff, like what, like earthworms, like, and llamas. How did we all get here? But
Yeah.
you can you can feel that um, there's something that goes through us all that
Hmm.
that that unifies us in a way.
So it is, well, and I think that that resonance, that there's something that resonates in us all. Uh, a term I often use is that I loved from, I hate to say this, but from Anna Green Gables, the
Oh,
kindred
no,
spirit. It's like that,
yeah,
right? Kindred spirit.
no shame there. Definitely on Team Ann.
Yeah. But when you say celebrates, so that the Jubilee Underground celebrates this, is that a posture? Is that actual? Is this something that we raise our cups to when we are a part of Jubilee Underground?
Yeah, it's you find something that already exists. You don't have to
Mm.
make it happen. It's there, and just
Mm.
like bring it to light in a to
Oh,
showcase it, like to showcase, like, look at this, look how this uh all living things are pulsating with the same life, with
so it's
one
like a celebration that highlights what's already there.
life.
I like that. I like that. Okay, and then cultivates resilient systems of life with emphasis on natural biological assets and decentralized mutual relationships. I think that's pretty straightforward.
That was
Preserves the
kind of
old what?
the
Go ahead.
the cultivating resilient systems of life is one of the first phrases I came up with for Jubilee Underground, and that I think I spent so many years um, busting my head about like systems of control.
Mm,
Really ate at me. Like when I listened to, I don't know if you've heard this Anthony kid, Chris Anthony, singing about the rich men north of
rich
Richmond.
man north of Richmond.
Everybody's
Yeah.
everybody's all excited or they hate him or whatever, and it doesn't grab me like it used to. I could imagine like 25-year-old me being like, yeah, those guys are the problem because I just was obsessed about it.
Ah.
Um, and now I'm obsessed with, instead of systems of control, like these shell games that, the house has got things rigged so that you can't win for losing. I'm
Mm.
upset with living systems that are symbiotic and um, relationships between people, whether they're economic transactions or just agreements of some kind, where both people are on board with it and they've made an agreement together, instead of one person forcing the other person to serve them. And so
Yeah.
that that's the antidote, but I don't even have to bring up what's the antidote to, really. It's just,
Right.
it's awesome. So
Well, and that goes back to our discussion on Shanti Shena, right?
right.
And that to me is one of the best examples of a wrestling or an attempt or a it's like an actual explainable thing that you've seen at work and that successfully, right? Shanti
That
Shena. Huh? What'd you say?
yeah, in that instance it was, yeah.
I
Um,
guess yeah, and that's the thing about the word cultivating that I like is that it's like we used to say in my Becoming a Man program. It's not called uh, being a man; it's called becoming a man and cultivating. You know, it says that Jubilee Underground cultivates resilient systems of life. It's the idea of a progression. It's the idea of a work in progress.
and because there is, you know, inertia and entropy, and there are systems of control, there living systems and mutual systems are in danger, like um there's a certain amount of risk that it's not going to work. So just give it a little boost and keep it spinning, like give it some more energy so that it's going to make it through the struggle out
Mm,
the other side. So I believe that anything that we um save now will be part of this new world, which is
mm,
burden and convivial, but um we're we're losing so much, even genetic material diversity in seeds and whatnot, like um, at a rapid rate. So anything that can be done to strengthen that, um, living systems like naturally reproducing seed varieties, um,
mm.
like kind of get through the crunch to the other side is kind of the idea. But they need a little bit of help. They're they're gonna
Yeah.
make it. They need our giving them a little push in the right direction sometimes.
Well, and what I've gotten from talking with you about Jubilee Underground, not only does it's like they need a little help, they need a little push, but I almost feel like, I mean, it's the underground part of Jubilee Underground. It needs to be dug out a little bit. It needs to be uncovered a little bit. Like it's there, but it's covered up by all these things, and like it's obfuscated by all this stuff that we need. It's like dirt. You just need to move it out of the way, kind of.
Well, in the long form section down at the bottom of the purpose statement,
Yeah.
actually gets into how the hiddenness of it is part of how it survives too. So maybe not.
I like that. I like that. Read that part to me. Where is that? Where is that?
Life and consciousness, ancient and resilient, are complex and mysterious. Thousands of generations have investigated, observed, dissected, extracted, synthesized, and even modified living organisms without grasping the essence. Not only is life too wonderful to be fully understood, but inscrutability is a fundamental quality of life without which it may not survive. Seeds,
Mm.
eggs, and spores contain the secrets of our continued existence, and our collective survival depends upon the freedom and obscurity in which they operate. The consciousness which created life and sustains it is far beyond the sum of the parts. All of the material energy and consciousness in the universe could not have ordered itself with such precision and complexity. Human intelligence, imagination, and ingenuity are rightly considered the highest form of consciousness among all the wonders. Realizing our full potential includes utilizing these assets in the service of life. Are we capable of altering the code, creating new forms of life and consciousness, forming our creations in our image? Are such attempts part of our destiny, or are we not qualified to attempt such meddling? Will there be
Mm.
unintended and irreversible consequences of our ambitious interventions? So
Yeah.
that's a little controversial, but
No, I think it's good though, and I think it's well, like it's poetic almost in the way you're talking about or forming the image of the hope for what what can be accomplished with Jubilee Underground Initiative, with being a part of this. And in a lot of ways, for me, what I'm getting out of this is that it has a lot to do with reminding each other of these truths and uncovering these truths over and over again with each other, and then putting them into practice, but like in mundane ways, not necessarily in like earth shattering ways, but like putting them to practice in our mundane uh, rhythms of life.
right. Like, so if you think of social engineers or public relations people, like they know that in order for things to keep on ticking, there has to be somebody who uh, kind of plans it and then makes it idiot proof almost, like it has to be accessible to everyone and easily practiced. So like, how do we get hundreds of millions of people to do the same thing every day so that this keeps chugging along? Well, they got to have a reason behind it. They've got to believe in it. They got to have a story that makes sense to them. Um, and and it's got to be easily it's got to be replicable. It's got to be practical. So practicable. So yeah, I don't fancy myself a social engineer, but people who are good at it basically make it easy for people to participate. But
Okay.
um, part of it is making a narrative that that people can get behind, something that sparks their imagination and
Well, and it seems like not only does it spark their imagination, but while it does that, it's encouraging, right? Like
yeah,
it's life giving in its message, a message of verdant and convivial future. That's hope.
right. Um, and like I'd probably like to write or talk about what most narratives are talking about at this point is basically fear based. Like you're under attack, your way of life is threatened,
Hmm.
and we're going to define who your enemies are for you, so you know who's the bad guy. That's
Hmm.
like 90 something percent of the competing narratives, but they all underlying all of them is sort of like this you know existential crisis. Stay, sound the alarm bells, and you have this constant stress of fight or flight,
Yeah.
keeping you from being able to think straight.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's interesting because what the a sense that I get out of reading this is a sense the word slow. Maybe that's not the right word. Not slow, but like gradual or maybe slow. Slow has sort of become pejorative in our modern parlance, but like slowed down. Um,
It's not like buy it
more
now, limited supply.
right, right, right. It's like a slowed down process. Because that fear based thing that you're talking about, and the and now this syndrome is not you just can't. It's unsustainable,
Right.
and it's not a way of life. It's more of a way of well, it's a way of um, getting burnt up, consumed,
Consumption. Yep.
consumption, yeah, and
It's for the
consuming,
purpose. It's for the purpose of the uh, accumulation of wealth and power in a centralized location. Consolidating wealth and power is at the bottom of it.
yeah,
So
which is enticing, but it's a life of death. Well, let's
unless
keep going through this.
I
What's
mean,
that?
unless you're one of the slaves, then it's not as enticing.
Well, I don't know. Like yeah, I guess the trick of the American dream is that the slaves think that they can be the masters.
Yeah,
It's like that's what keeps them slaving.
yeah.
Preserve the old ways that are of lasting value. There again, that slowed down approach, lasting value for future generations. That's like the understanding of children. I think it's family comes out in this, though it's not a prerequisite. I think that right there is probably the most obvious call or um, inclusion of family values being part of a family. Then what were you gonna say something?
Yeah, people who think in terms of centuries and generations instead of immediate
Mm,
is a new phenomenon to me. I've been meeting more and more people like that, and I try and hang on to them and see what they're thinking and what they're doing, because they
yeah,
think different and they act different. Um, like the if you ever hear that poem about the guy who's building the bridge, and he's like, "You're never going to use this bridge," and he's like, "Yeah, but somebody else is, and I'm building that for him." Or like
yeah,
planting seeds of trees that you're never going to sit in the shade of, kind of thing.
right.
Yeah, people who think in terms of centuries or
Well, I remember you talking about this in the podcast
yeah,
where you talked about joining. or discovering your wife's, of course, then it was your fiance or whatever, her family, and realizing, whoa, these people are not, this community is not working for toward next year. They're working from centuries and working or decades at least, and working towards the next
Right.
decade or so.
The Native Americans have a concept they talk about being in the middle of 7 generations. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Let's assume that you met your great grandparents at some time
Mm.
and like your lives touched. I met um at least half, more than half of my great grandparents, or so about half of my great grandparents. But their lives began in the early 1900s or the late 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I meet my great grandchildren, uh, their life might extend into the 23rd century.
Yeah.
And that, like, 300 years of lives, I got to touch a little bit at both ends. So
Mm.
like I'm a bridge, but also you can be the filter. You can decide, like, there's some things I don't want to pass on. They stop with me. But
Mm.
if you decide this is valuable, we can't lose this, then you can make sure that it lives on after you by
Mm-hmm.
getting it into the young people, when you're old, and say, keep this. It's worthwhile. This is something worth keeping.
Yeah, I like that. We're running out of time a little bit, so I want to go through these last four a little bit faster. It invites a wide array of tribes to conversation, collaboration, and mutual education. I think the only thing that tribes, do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is a little bit of a sticky term, but I'd say groups that have a common language and understanding and a way of life are working on the same mission.
Hmm.
So, I love situations like one time I had a seed swap,
Hmm.
um, and there was just like people who drive horse and buggy, like don't have cars.
Yeah.
Um, there was like real like radical socialist, uh, feminist types, and everything in between. Like even
Hmm.
at my wedding, we had such a wide array of people, and they're like, "How do you have all these different friends that look
Hmm.
and talk completely different from each other?" And we're like, "They're all our friends." Like
Yeah.
some of them have
I,
tattoos, some of them
I
think
think
tattoos is awful, but
weddings are often a place where worlds collide.
yeah,
That's how we talk about it in our family, like collision of worlds, like coming together, different worlds. But tribes is like a more earthy way of talking about these different worlds and worldviews and stuff. Yeah.
mhm. So they could
Uh,
represent a, a group that understands each other, but it's a clique or it's a echo chamber. And how
yeah.
are we going to learn how to talk to people that aren't talking the same language, and then find out what
Right.
we have in common?
Going back to what we talked about in the podcast about vocabulary and language. Yeah.
Mhm.
Curates, innovates ideas, projects, products with common vision. Now, this on the outset, I thought that this has more to do with commerce, but actually, when I went back and looked at it, kind of strikes me more as like this is where because at first I thought that there's kind of a I'm I was struck by the fact that there wasn't a lot of language about art, and
Mhm.
I think that to me this is where that kind of comes in. It's like if you're not thinking in terms of consumeristic commerce, you pull back a little bit from that, curating innovative ideas, projects with common vision, like that's where I think, I mean, we've talked about ways of doing that with learning how to do different things and industry. But I think that this, I don't know about if this was what you're thinking, but this is where art can come in as we work on beautiful things.
That's a good idea. I have a bad habit of forgetting about art a lot. Like I dabble in poetry, but
Mm.
poetry and
Hmm.
art pretty much take a back burner. But yeah, if somebody that's their man, when I do meet somebody that's their expression, I'm like, wow, we definitely need to have you on our team. You're doing great work. But it doesn't first occur to me. But
Well,
that's
maybe we could. I mean, this, of course, this is like you said, this, or like it says, this is a cultivation. Maybe we could add something like that in here. I don't like just. I think you already have it kind of in here, but innovative, maybe in create curates innovative and creative ideas,
mhm.
projects, products, and common vision. Maybe that would be what I would suggest. All right, and the next one is seeks to disentangle and liberate what is essentially human from the falsehoods that oppress, exploit, or disfigure. And I mean, I think that's the disentangling. We've talked a lot about that. Disentangle and liberate. I feel like that is something, and I don't know if we've talked about it as much in this podcast or discussion, but I just getting to know you, I know that this is essential to who you are.
Yeah, that's personal mission statement and organizational mission statement together.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be a part of a mission that is not somehow tied into your personal mission statement,
Right.
right? It's like, what are you doing if you're not personally invested? Did you want to say anything about, like, I think we've talked a lot about it, but anything's like that you feel like might get missed by this statement?
I'd have to think on that some more, but
It's pretty straightforward, I think.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I like it the way it is right now, but it'll probably get added to and revised and whatnot as time goes on. But
Oh, yeah.
the day I banged that
Uh,
out, I was flying.
dude, this is a piece of this is an inspired piece of work, brother. The last one is the Jubilee Underground provides revitalized myths and meta narratives well suited for a free and harmonious new world.
Yeah, we kind of covered that one,
Mhm.
but well suited for a free and harmonious new world is basically like that's the objective. Like if if you know what the goal is, um,
Mhm.
then that helps inform everything that you do and say and write and whatnot along the way. Um, and that goes along with the disentangling and liberating too, because I feel like
Mhm.
people have got so much potential. Everybody's got potential, and everybody's got gifts, and everybody's got something to offer, but all their energy is being poured into things that are designed to take their energy and give it to the designer of the system,
Mhm.
like the house always wins idea. So if you're not trying to suck people's energy for a small number of people to hold on to, then like what is the point of having a narrative, or um,
Mm.
a myth. And if it's so that people can be free and they can be in harmony with one another, that like keep that central to your idea, and you'll come out with the right narrative, I think.
Well, and that's what I think is at the core of all this, is that if somebody asks me what is Jubilee Underground, to me um, it is a continual cooperation, a cooperative, a group of people that are reminding each other of the free and harmonious new world,
Right.
and of the particulars outlined in what we just talked about. Would you agree?
Yeah, you there's plenty of things that'll distract and
Hmm.
help us forget.
Yeah.
And I mean, like right now I'm going through a season in life where I kind of like lost the plot, like when
Hmm.
you're just like swimming through murky water, like where's all this going? But having something to come back to that's like, remember the vision
Yeah.
and what's important.
Well, and in my experience talking to people, two things comes out of that for me, is that there is power in writing things down, and
Mm,
there's power in saying things, and both of those things are made even more powerful when we're doing it with somebody else. So when we're saying it to somebody else and they say it back to us, or if they read something that we wrote and are talking like we're doing now.
yeah, yeah, there is power in it.
Yeah. And yeah, so let's I I hope we can continue to keep talking and uncovering these things, and anybody who wants to read this whole thing is it will be on, it's under purpose statement on Jubilee Underground, and by the time you're watching this, jubileeunderground.com will be an accessible and helpful resource, I say, with hope and faith.
Me too.
Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
brother. All right. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, appreciate it.